Chapter 4, The Battle of Who Could Care Less. Within a week, Kit Kat's crime scene had been cleaned up, and the papers had a new headline, a new corpse, a new scandal. Her body had been shipped home to New Hampshire to be buried. All that was left to do was pack up her stuff so the landlord could rent out her apartment. The super swore us all to secrecy about what had happened there. Hillary was charged with cleaning the place out and put an invite on Facebook saying that everyone was welcome to come and take what they wanted. On Friday night, bring booze, bring food. Her family had held a private memorial service, so this was the time for all of us to say the goodbyes we couldn't post on Facebook. I knew I wasn't going to be able to go down there alone. It was going to take everything I had to walk through that door again, get a drink from the same kitchen where, just a week ago, her blood had been spilled. Sid had agreed to go with me in lieu of our planned chips marathon, and even as I stood in her doorway, my hand shook in his. He'd only met Kit Kat once or twice. He told her that a red velvet cake was better than his grandmother's, and she posted it as her favorite review on her website. By the time we got there, someone with a blue sticker had already claimed her recipe binder. Crying, tattooed girls leafed through her record collection, and boys in oversized glasses and sweater vests hung around her decoupaged kitchen table where the liquor and chips were stocked. I didn't know most of her friends, but I recognized Natalie and Mac over by the bookcase, who gestured to me with a traditional hipster greeting of a chin toss and a glance away, pretending to be in the middle of something so important it could not be disturbed for a proper hello. Kit Kat had introduced me to Natalie at one of her Stitch and Bitch nights, and Natalie, in turn, introduced me to Mac, whom she had, at the time, been dating. In addition to managing the Brenner Gallery, Natalie had also maintained a blog about her dating adventures called The Village Bicycle. Although she and Mac had broken up, if Natalie stopped hanging out with all the people she slept with, she'd probably have to leave Brooklyn. "This is the weirdest memorial I have ever been to," Sid said under his breath. Weird, twee, and oddly appropriate. Kit Kat would have totally been into the scene if it had been for anybody else. Even in death, she embodied the heart of Barter Street. For a moment, I forgot my part in her passing and just ignored the high of the interconnectivity we were all sharing. That all vanished when I saw Hillary, perched on the kitchen windowsill, smoking, ignoring everyone. She looked twice as old as when I'd last seen her at Kit Kat's 30th birthday party. The blue streaks faded out of her blonde hair, left arm tattoo sleeve covered by a chunky gray sweater. No jewelry but the twisted rope metal of the wedding ring her ska band trombonist husband had given her. She was the first person I felt genuine sorrow for other than myself, but I couldn't find the words to express any of it. "Hey, Hillary," I stammered. "How are you holding up?" She flicked her cigarette butt out the window and shrugged. "I just want this over with," she sighed. "God, all these people are so annoying. Frauds, all of them. I should have just dumped this off at the Salvation Army." Two shrieks erupted from the bedroom, and Hillary huffed off the windowsill to investigate. I followed, taking the glass of red wine Sid held out to me, like he was in the waterline of a marathon. Jill, with her blonde bangs and cowboy boots, was crumpled in a heap on the bed, clutching the sleeve of a red vintage dress, while Brandy, with soft-streaked mascara, held the rest. "This is my favorite," Jill sobbed in staccato. "Kit Kat would want me to have it." "You're too fat for it," Brandy said with a snarl through her own black tears. "Oh, for fuck's sake," Hillary rolled her eyes. She snatched the piece of the dress out of both their hands and shoved it onto me. "It's yours, Jed. Enjoy. You two, get out." They stared at her. Hillary threw shade that would have made a drag queen shiver. I looked at the whole scene and then at the dress in my hands. The girls gathered themselves up and left without another outburst. I shoved the sleeve into my pocket and tossed the dress over my shoulder, following Hillary until I got back to Sid. "What was that all about?" he whispered. I shook my head. Hillary returned with a Whole Foods bag and a sheet of green garage sale labels with two already missing. "Just stick these on whatever you want," she said. "And you can keep Baldrick. I went ahead and claimed his food and water bowls for you. Our Aunt Jenny made them. They should stay with him. I've got his cat carrier, too, if you want it." "Sure," I said, holding up the labels. "I'll, go claim it." Sid refilled the bourbon in his glass and dropped 2 octopus ice cubes in with a barely audible clink. I put a sticker on the ice cube tray. I didn't need or want them, but I felt like I had to take something, like accepting a homemade cookie even though you couldn't stand raisins. I took my wine and my date over to where Mac was thumbing through Kit Kat's DVDs. "I always wonder where she got the name Baldrick from," he said, holding up Blackadder Goes Forth. She always said that Monty Python got overquoted, said Natalie, taking a seat on the ottoman and adjusting one of the lion mane scarves she wore effortlessly draped around her neck. She said once you heard a jerk in a fedora recite Dead Parrot for the 100th time, you had to start exploring other areas of British comedy. "He's just sleeping," yelled some drunk, fedora-sporting jerk from the other room. Natalie rolled her eyes. "That one's with me," she muttered. "Here," Max said, passing the DVDs to me. "You got the cat. You should get the source of his name, too." That was when I teared up. I felt like a thief. Everyone in this room had adored her, and there I was, sharing their same grief. Was I no better than the girl who tried to take my seat on the subway? I hadn't even told anyone but Sid about finding her body. "We'll all miss her," Max said, giving me a side hug. "She was a real bright spot on this block." I let him hug me. It made me feel less like an outsider. I took a deep breath and Natalie squeezed my hand. I took a drink and looked around. It was okay to mourn. It was okay to be sad in this place. No one was taking a survey of who was really her friend and who was a faker. Well, no one except Hillary, but she seemed to like me. And for the first time since I had arrived on Barter Street, I felt like I finally belonged to the neighborhood. "Oh man, remember that time she and Bronco hosted the Nick Arcade party when his annual 4th of July Calvin Ball game got rained out?" Natalie asked. "I still have the t-shirt where she wrote her high scores on the back," Mac exclaimed. "I haven't gotten that far in Golden Axe since, and I have it on my phone." Bronco. All of her other friends were present, but her boyfriend was nowhere to be seen. "Why isn't Bronco here?" I asked. "No one's heard from him since we found out," Natalie said. "I bet he's pretty beat up about it." "Hillary said he was at the funeral," Max said, "but he isn't answering the phone, hasn't posted to Facebook, nothing." "I'm worried about him," Natalie said. "I'm going to drop by tomorrow and bring my vegan lasagna." Group visits were a huge part of Barter Street life, complete with cookies and semi-ironic casseroles. When I first moved in, I joined a Facebook group dedicated to posting photos of ugly casserole dishes in an ongoing game of who could find the most hideous. I wondered who'd gotten Kit Kat's yellow and white paisley dish, which had taken prizes for both ugliness outside and delicious chicken and bacon goodness inside. Whoever had the pink tag had already laid claim to it. Natalie pulled the Panda alarm clock out of her bag and checked the time, which means I better get to the store if I'm going to get some soy cheese. She pointed to me, then withdrew her hand. "I was going to see if you were up for going to Access for homework on Saturday, but I guess it doesn't seem right without Kit Kat." Homework was a weekly dark 80s dance party that Natalie, Kit Kat, and I dropped by occasionally. I thought about the tape still sitting on my dining room table and briefly toyed with the idea of contacting DJ Mistaken and asking her to play it in tribute to Kit Kat. But I didn't even know what was on it, and chances were Mistaken wasn't lugging a boombox around with her mixing board. "Maybe we'll just get coffee," I said. "Give me a call." It was hugs and call-me's all around, and then Natalie left, dragging her drunken date out with her. Mac wandered into the kitchen to intrude on a conversation about Faith No More, leaving Sid and me sitting awkwardly next to the now empty bookcase. I had a torn dress, some DVDs, an ice cube tray, and her cat. I didn't really need anything else.